You know what they say about the best revenge? It's not living well. It's sitting across a dinner table from the man who tried to destroy you 30 years ago, watching him think he's finally got you cornered, while your son-in-law, his own flesh and blood, sits right there having no clue he's been running your company for the past 18 months. My name's Braden Walsh. I'm 57 years old, and I've spent the last 30 years building Walsh Pierce Industries from a two-man operation in a rented garage to a $22 million agricultural equipment manufacturer. We make the machines that harvest America's crops across 14 states. Nothing fancy, nothing glamorous, but essential work that keeps food on tables from here to California. The thing about being successful in a small Missouri town is that everyone knows your truck, but nobody expects you to own the biggest employer in 3 counties. I drive a 2008 Ford F-15, with 180,000 miles on it. I wear Wrangler jeans and work boots that I actually work in. When I'm checking the factory floor at 6 a.m., most folks assume I'm just another supervisor, not the guy who signs the paychecks for 350 people. That's exactly how I like it. Now, my daughter Avery married a good man named Mason Reed about 3 years back. Smart kid, 29 years old, got his MBA from Missouri State, and has that hungry look of someone who wants to build something meaningful. When they got serious, I did what any protective father would do. I put him through our hiring process. Quietly, of course. Turns out the boy had talent, real talent. So 18 months ago, I made him CEO of Walsh Pierce Industries. He had no idea I owned the company. Far as Mason knew, he'd been headhunted by a prestigious firm, interviewed by our board of directors, and earned the position based on pure merit. Which, to be fair, he mostly had. I just opened a door that might have stayed closed otherwise. Avery thought I was either brilliant or completely insane. "Dad," she said one evening while we sat on my back porch watching the sunset paint the Missouri sky orange, "you do realize this sounds like something out of a soap opera, right?" "I prefer to think of it as strategic family planning," I told her. She gave me that look. "You fathers know the one. Equal parts love and concern for your mental health." For 18 months, everything worked perfectly. Mason ran the company better than I'd expected, which both pleased and irritated me because it meant my daughter had better taste in men than I'd given her credit for. He streamlined our supply chain, improved worker safety protocols, and increased productivity by 5% without laying off a single person. The kid understood that treating people right was good business, something that took me years to learn. He had this way of walking the factory floor every Tuesday morning, stopping to talk with the welders and the assembly crews. Not the fake executive walkthrough where you shake hands and forget names 5 minutes later. Real conversations about their families, their ideas for improving processes. I watched him through the office window sometimes, seeing myself at his age, except he was smoother about it, less rough around the edges. Then, 3 weeks ago, Mason called me. Not as my son-in-law, but the way he always did. Respectful, warm, with that slight formality young executives use when they're talking to someone they think is just a local retiree who happens to be married to their wife's family. "Braden," he said, "I'd like you to meet my parents properly. They're coming to town this weekend, and Dad's been asking about you specifically. Would you join us for dinner Saturday night?" Something in my gut shifted when he said that. Not alarm exactly, but the feeling you get when you hear a sound that doesn't belong in your house at night. A floorboard creaking when everyone should be asleep. "He's been asking about me?" I said. "Yeah," Mason replied, and there was a pause that lasted just a beat too long. "You know how parents are. They want to know about their son's new family." I almost said no. My instincts were speaking pretty clearly, the way they do when you've spent 30 years in business, learning to read the spaces between words. But there's a version of me, the version that spent 3 decades building something from nothing, that doesn't run from gut feelings. That version walks toward them slowly, with his hands in his pockets. "Sure," I said. "Where at?" "Morrison's Steakhouse." "You know the place?" I knew it. The kind of restaurant where the menu comes in a leather folder, and the waiters introduce themselves like they're going to be part of your life for the next 2 hours. Where a steak costs more than most of my employees make in a day, and the wine list reads like a foreign language. "I'll be there," I said. Saturday evening came around, and I wore my cleanest jeans and a button-down shirt that Avery had bought me for my birthday. The one she said made me look less like a farmer and more like a businessman. I'd told her there wasn't much difference between the two if you were doing either one right. Mason met me at the door of Morrison's, looking sharp in a jacket that probably cost more than most people make in a week. He glanced at my outfit, and to his credit, didn't flinch. 3 years of being married to my daughter had taught him that trying to change Braden Walsh was like trying to teach a pig to sing. It wastes your time and annoys the pig. "You look great, Braden," he said. "I look like a man who found parking," I replied. He laughed. I didn't. Inside, the restaurant was all dark wood and soft lighting, the kind of place where conversations happen in hushed tones, and nobody talks business unless it's the kind that requires privacy. Parker and Riley Reed were already seated at a corner table, the kind that gives you a view of the whole room while keeping your own conversation contained. Now, I need you to understand something about first impressions. In my experience, people who've done something wrong always overcompensate when they meet you. They're too friendly, too interested. The smile arrives before the handshake is finished, and there's a quality to their attention that feels like they're performing for an audience you can't see. Parker Reed stood up and gripped my hand with both of his, the double clasp handshake that, in my experience, means either deep sincerity or deep calculation. "Braden," he said, like we were old friends meeting after years apart. "We've heard so much about you. Please sit." Riley touched my arm and said I looked wonderfully comfortable, which is restaurant speak, for I've clocked your jeans and filed you under not a threat. "Perfect," we ordered. I got the ribeye, medium rare, because I've learned that how a man orders his steak tells you something about how he approaches life. Parker went with the salmon, which told me he was a man who played it safe. Mason ordered the same steak as me, which meant he was still trying to figure out who he wanted to be. We made small talk about the weather, unseasonably warm for October, about Avery's work in marketing, about my little property outside town. Parker asked about my garden, with the kind of polite interest people show when they're filling time before the real conversation starts. I told him I grew tomatoes. He nodded the way people do when they've already stopped listening. Mason talked about the company carefully, the way he always did around me, keeping details vague out of what he thought was professional courtesy. He mentioned the new contract with a distributor in Kansas, the safety improvements in the welding department, the employee appreciation barbecue we had held last month. He had no idea he was giving his father a front-row seat to inside information about Walsh Pierce Industries. I watched Parker during these exchanges, the way his eyes sharpened when Mason mentioned revenue figures, how he leaned forward almost, imperceptibly when the conversation touched on our client base. The man was gathering intelligence, and he thought he was being subtle about it. About 45 minutes in, right when I was starting to think maybe I'd imagined the whole thing, Parker Reed reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out an envelope, cream-colored, thick, the kind that doesn't come from Office Depot, the kind lawyers use when they want you to know the contents are serious before you even break the seal. He placed it on the table in front of me with the deliberate care of a man laying down a winning poker hand. The restaurant's soft lighting caught the envelope's surface, and I could see it had weight to it. Multiple pages, multiple documents. This wasn't a simple letter. "Braden," he said, his voice dropping just enough to signal we weren't making small talk anymore. "We've been wanting to sit down with you for a long time. There are some things about your past, about your business history, that we think deserve a conversation." I looked at the envelope, I looked at Parker, I looked at Mason, who was suddenly very interested in his steak, cutting it into smaller and smaller pieces, like he could make the moment last, longer by slowing down time. And I thought, there it is. 30 years of building, 30 years of thinking that what happened with Landon Pierce stayed buried where I'd left it. But the past has a way of showing up at dinner tables when you least expect it, dressed up in cream-colored envelopes and carried by people who think they know the whole story. I picked up my water glass, took a slow sip. The ice clinked against the glass, the only sound at our table, while the rest of the restaurant continued its quiet dinner conversation around us. "Parker," I said, setting it down with a quiet click. "Before I open that, I think you should know something about me." He smiled, patient, confident, the smile of a man holding all the cards. It was the same smile I'd seen on dozens of faces, across dozens of negotiating tables over the years. The smile that says, "I've got you exactly where I want you. I'm listening," he said. I leaned forward slightly, just enough to close the distance between us without appearing aggressive. I never sit down at a table I haven't already won. The envelope sat between us like a hand grenade with the pin pulled. And nobody at that table, not Parker, not Riley, not even Mason, knew I'd been holding the pin the whole time. I didn't open the envelope immediately. That's important because the whole game, and make no mistake, this was absolutely a game, depended on who broke first. Parker had spent considerable time setting this stage. The restaurant, the timing, the cream-colored envelope placed just so. This was choreography. And choreography only works when the other person follows the steps you've laid out. I had no intention of dancing, so I picked up my fork, cut into my steak, chewed slowly, and let silence sit at that table like an uninvited guest. Riley shifted in her seat, her manicured fingers playing with her wine glass stem. Parker's confident smile developed a hairline crack at the left corner. Mason still hadn't looked up from his plate. The silence stretched. 10 seconds? 20? 30? In the background, I could hear the quiet conversations from other tables, the soft clink of silverware, the muted laughter of people having normal dinners with normal families, none of them sitting on top of 30-year-old secrets that were about to crawl out of their graves. Finally, after what I counted as a very satisfying 50 seconds, I set my fork down, wiped my mouth with the cloth napkin, and reached for the envelope. Inside were documents, photocopied but clean, organized with the kind of deliberate neatness that screams, "Lawyer touched these." Bank statements, correspondence, what looked like legal agreements. I didn't read them immediately. I didn't need to. The moment my eyes landed on the name at the top of the first page, my chest went cold and completely calm at the same time. Landon Pierce. Let me tell you about Landon Pierce. In 1993, Landon and I were partners. We were both 27, broke in that specific way only young men with enormous dreams and zero capital can be broke. We had a plan to build something, a small equipment repair shop that would grow into manufacturing. We were going to be the guys who kept America's farms running. For 4 years, we built it together. And for 4 years, I ignored every sign that Landon wasn't the man I thought he was. He was skimming, not dramatically, not all at once, but the way termites work, quietly, consistently, until the structure is hollow, and you don't know it until you lean on the wrong wall and the whole thing comes down around your ears. By 1997, Landon had siphoned enough from our accounts to fund his own operation. A competitor built entirely on clients he'd stolen and contacts he'd poached. He was using our customer lists, our pricing, strategies, even our supplier relationships, building his empire on the foundation I'd helped him lay, then pulling that foundation out from under me, one brick at a time. When I found out, I didn't explode. I didn't storm into his office and start throwing punches like some hothead kid. I went very, very quiet. That's what 30 years of business teaches you. The loudest voice in the room is usually the weakest one. I spent 6 months documenting everything, every transaction, every forged signature, every diverted contract. I became a detective investigating my own company, following paper trails that led back to my partner's betrayal. When I had enough evidence to end him 17 different ways, I sat across from Landon Pierce in our small office on a Tuesday morning in March and gave him a choice: walk away, dissolve his competing firm, sign over his remaining stake, and disappear. Or I take everything to the district attorney and he spends the next decade explaining himself to a jury. Landon Pierce looked at that evidence for about 10 minutes. Then he looked at me. Then he chose to disappear. I rebuilt alone and swore I'd never trust a partner again. What I didn't know, what I had no way of knowing, was that Landon Pierce had a younger brother, 15 years his junior, a kid who was maybe 12 when all this happened, a kid who grew up hearing one side of a story from a broken man who never once admitted what he'd actually done wrong. A kid named Parker. I looked up from the documents. Parker was watching me with the focused intensity of a man who'd waited 30 years for this exact moment. His patient smile was gone now, replaced by something colder and more honest. "Where did you get these?" I asked quietly. "Landon kept records," Parker said. "Everything you did to him, Braden. Every threat, every ultimatum. The way you forced him out of a company he helped build from nothing." I nodded slowly. "And you've been holding these for how long?" "Long enough?" Landon died 6 years ago. Lung cancer. He died with nothing, Braden. Nothing. Because of what you took from him. And there it was. The grief underneath the strategy. I could hear it in his voice. See it in the way his jaw tightened when he said his brother's name. This wasn't just about money or business. This was about a little brother who'd watched his hero fall and spent 30 years believing it was someone else's fault. "Parker," I said carefully, "I'm sorry about your brother. I don't want your condolences. What do you want?" He leaned forward, and for the first time since I'd sat down, his mask slipped completely. "I want you to resign from whatever role you still play at Walsh Pierce. I want a financial settlement, the numbers in the envelope, paid to my family as restitution for what Landon lost. And I want it done before my son's name gets attached to whatever comes next." That's when Mason finally looked up. I want to describe what I saw on my son-in-law's face because it matters to everything that follows. It wasn't the face of a conspirator. It wasn't the face of someone who'd been planning this moment. It was the face of a man who just heard something he wasn't prepared for, something that rearranged his understanding of his own life in real time. There was confusion in his eyes, his jaw tight. Color had drained from his face. He looked from his father to me, and back again, with the particular panic of someone who'd been told this was just dinner, and was now realizing it was something else entirely. "Dad," Mason started, his voice younger than his 29 years. "Mason." Parker's voice was a closed door, final and dismissive. Mason closed his mouth, but his eyes stayed on his father's face. I could see him processing, trying to piece together a puzzle he didn't know he'd been a part of. "How long have you known?" I asked Mason directly, cutting through his father's attempt to control the conversation. He looked at his father, then back at me. "Known what? About the history between our families." Parker started to speak, but I held up a hand without taking my eyes off Mason. The gesture was gentle but absolute. "I knew there was some kind of business disagreement," Mason said slowly, each word careful and deliberate. "Dad mentioned it when Avery and I got engaged, said there was old bad blood that needed settling. And you being close to me was..." "What?" I asked. Mason's face went pale. The words came out barely above a whisper. "An opportunity." I nodded, not in approval, but in understanding. Riley chose this moment to place her manicured hand over mine, her touch soft and calculated. "Braden," she said with manufactured warmth, "this doesn't have to be unpleasant. We're family now. This is about making things right." I looked at her hand, then at her face. The same patient smile as her husband, the same practiced sympathy. "Riley," I said pleasantly, "I need you to hear this next part very clearly." I reached into my own jacket and placed my own envelope on the table, smaller, white, unremarkable looking. It landed next to Parker's cream-colored drama with a quiet thud. "Landon's records are incomplete," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the table despite its quiet tone. Which makes sense, because a man building a false narrative tends to keep only the pages that support his version of events. Parker's eyes dropped to my envelope, and I watched something shift in his face, a flicker of uncertainty. "What I have here," I continued, "are the original bank records from our joint accounts between 1995 and 1997. The withdrawal patterns, the wire transfers to a shell company registered in Landon's girlfriend's name at the time, a woman named Jennifer Walsh, no relation to me, in case you're wondering. The correspondence where Landon explicitly discussed replicating our client list and launching a competing firm using our infrastructure, our relationships, and our trade secrets." The color was draining from Parker's face now, but I wasn't finished. I also have signed testimony from Dale Winters, Landon's accountant at the time, who is 73 years old, perfectly healthy, and absolutely willing to testify to exactly what transactions he processed on Landon's instructions. Dale kept his own copies of everything, Parker. Professional habit. Parker's face had changed completely. The patient confidence was gone, replaced by something raw and exposed. Something that looked like a man watching his life's work crumble in real time. "You destroyed him," he said, his voice losing its dinner party polish, becoming rougher around the edges. "He destroyed himself," I replied. "Then he told you a story that let him die feeling like a victim instead of what he actually was, a thief who got caught." Parker stood up slowly. Riley touched his arm, a warning gesture. "Sit down, Parker," I said quietly, "because this conversation isn't finished. The part that actually matters is about your son." For the first time since I'd sat, Down, I saw something in Parker's face that wasn't rehearsed confidence, something that looked remarkably like fear. "Mason," I said, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen to me, not as your father-in-law, not as some old farmer in jeans, but just as Braden." He nodded barely. "I know exactly who you are. I've known since before you walked through Avery's door, and what I'm about to tell you is going to change everything you think you understand about your life for the past 18 months. The waiter appeared. "Can I interest anyone in dessert?" he asked brightly. All four of us stared at him. He backed away quickly. "Mason," I said, "what do you know about how you got your job as CEO?" He straightened. "I was headhunted, executive search firm. Competitive interview process with the board. It was," I agreed, "completely legitimate. Your qualifications were strong. I want you to hold on to that because it's true and it matters." "What do you mean hold on to that part?" "I mean the search firm that contacted you was hired by me. The board you interviewed with reports to me. The position you've held for 18 months, the corner office, the company car, the salary I approved, exists inside a company I've owned entirely for 30 years. Mason's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. He set it down slowly. "Braden Walsh," I said, "founder and sole owner of Walsh Pierce Industries. The Pierce in the name was Landon's. I kept it because he taught me the most important lesson of my business life. Absolute silence." "Why?" Mason asked. The word came out younger than intended. Riley made a sound between a gasp and a scoff. "So, this was all some kind of test?" "No," I said. "This was me being a father. There's a difference." Mason ran both hands through his hair, looked at his father. I watched something shift in his eyes. It wasn't confusion anymore. It was something colder. "How long?" he said to Parker, quiet and direct. "How long what, Dad? How long have you known who Braden was?" Parker adjusted his cufflinks. "I suspected when you told me the company name. Walsh Pierce. Landon mentioned Walsh years ago. When I told you the company name," Mason repeated slowly, "meaning before Avery and I got engaged. I was protecting our family." "You positioned me," Mason said flatly. "You found out who I was working for and saw an opportunity. You encouraged my relationship with Avery because you thought I was your way in." Riley reached for her son's hand. "Sweetheart, your Uncle Landon deserves—" "Don't." Mason pulled back. "Don't bring up Uncle Landon right now." I stayed still because this was about a young man seeing his father clearly, maybe for the first time. "Everything I did was for this family," Parker tried. "To do what?" Mason's voice cracked, then hardened. "Help you extort my father-in-law? Use my wife's family to settle a 30-year grudge over a story that wasn't even true?" After a long moment, Mason turned back to me. His face was composed now. The face of a CEO. "I owe you an apology," he said. "You don't. You didn't know. I knew enough to feel something was wrong about tonight, and I came anyway. That's not who I want to be." I studied him. "No, it isn't. And the fact that you know that is exactly why you still have a job Monday morning." Relief moved across his face. "As for you," I said, turning to Parker, "those documents you brought tonight are incomplete and harmless to me. You came here with what you thought was a weapon. It turned out to be a photograph of a weapon. I'm not pursuing anything legal," I continued. "Not because I couldn't, but because Landon was your brother, and grief makes people do things their better selves never would. But I need you to hear this clearly. Mason is the CEO of my company. Avery is my daughter, and as of her 27th birthday last month, a 30% shareholder in Walsh Pierce Industries. Your son married into something you spent years trying to tear down. The only reason any of that remains available to him is because he just proved he's not you." The silence could have filled the restaurant. Parker picked up his napkin, folded it, placed it beside his plate. "We should go," he said to Riley. They stood. Parker paused at Mason's shoulder. "Son, I'll call you." "Later, Dad. Not tonight." The distance in those words could have stretched across Missouri. Parker and Riley Reed walked out, and I watched them go with quiet satisfaction. Mason and I sat in silence. The waiter appeared again. "Dessert?" "You know what?" I said. "Yeah. What's the chocolate thing?" "2 of those," I told him. "And coffee. Real coffee." Mason let out a breath that sounded like it had been waiting all evening. Braden, I need to ask you something straight. Always. He looked me in the eye. Do you trust me to run the company, not as Avery's husband, as a CEO? I considered the question. 4 months ago, you restructured our Midwest distribution and saved us $800,000 annually. You did it without being asked. You identified the problem, built the solution, and presented it before I even knew there was an issue. I paused. So yes, I trust you. But, I added, Monday morning, we're having a real conversation. 2 men, about what we both know and how we move forward. No more mysteries. The corner of his mouth moved. You're not going to stop wearing jeans to the office, are you? The jeans are non-negotiable, I said firmly. He laughed, the first real sound I'd heard from him all evening. The chocolate cake arrived. We ate it. It was obscenely good. I drove home in my F-150, windows down, letting the Missouri night move past. I thought about Landon Pierce, about Parker rebuilding his story, about Mason explaining this evening to my daughter. Mostly I thought about what it means to build something. Not just a company, but a way of moving through the world that means when someone finally comes for you, you're already home. I pulled into my driveway, looked at my house, modest, warm, lit from inside because Avery never remembers to turn off the kitchen light. My phone buzzed. A text from Mason. Told Avery everything. She says you're impossible and she loves you. Also, she agrees the jeans are embarrassing. I smiled in the dark, typed back, tell her the jeans built her inheritance. Somewhere across town, Parker Reed was sitting with an empty envelope and a story full of holes. And I was going home to check on my tomatoes. Some men build empires to prove something. I built mine to protect something. Tonight, finally, everyone understood the difference. Real power isn't about showing what you own. It's about knowing when to reveal it and when to let others think they're in control while you guide the outcome. The strongest foundations are built not just with money and contracts, but with character tests that prove who will stand with you when everything they thought they knew gets turned upside down.